Rich with Experiences is a podcast of amazing people who shares their real-life lived experiences of adversity, strength, and courage in hopes to help someone who can relate. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on all major streaming platforms: Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and YouTube. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Rich with Experiences. My name is Michelle, your host, and today we have an amazing mental health coach. He's a nutrition specialist and also the owner and founder of A Map to Hope. I am so honored to have Jen Wilts with us today. Hello, Jen. How are you?
I am wonderful, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I am so excited.
Oh, great. I kind of told who you are as far as your titles. You're a mental health coach, you're a nutrition specialist. But what do you consider yourself to be an expert in?
I am the best at the world in inspiring hope. And I do that both through sharing my personal story of how I overcame trauma and mental health issues. And then I now use that to teach other people that they can do the same, that it is possible, that you are able to heal, that you don't have to settle for a new norm, and that it can be better, that you can heal. It is possible. So,
I love that. I love that messaging. I definitely agree. Hence, our academy is called Life After Loss. It's that connection to this new normal that gets us so
yeah.
stuck. And so, what were some of the things that you mentioned in your life that you've gone through? What were some of the things that allowed you to kind of move past that area of being stuck and help you realize there is life after experiencing what I went through, but I want to actually experience more and in a healthier way?
Sure. And my journey is kind of long. This was like a 15-year process, if you will. So in 2003, 2004, I was serving in the US Air Force, and I ended up being sexually assaulted by a coworker. And after that, I was a mess. I had no coping skills. I had, all my family was 9 hours away. I just couldn't handle it. And on top of that, we were going to have to go to trial, and which I really didn't want to do. But, some of the sweet people who were in the military police really try to inspire me to do. They're like, you're going to want to do this, because if you don't, you're going to regret it. And but I'll tell you, before we even made it to trial, I attempted suicide. And literally the only reason I am here today is because, and I believe this with all my heart, is that God intervened in my suicide attempt, because I should not be here. There is no explanation for what happened to me. And I'd like to tell you that in that moment that I was grateful that I was still alive, but I wasn't. I was very, very angry and bitter. And because, when you're going through something like that, it's almost like you feel like hell could not be as bad as what I'm experiencing, because it's just the torment and the anguish, and you're just constantly living in fight or flight. You don't know how to adjust. And I remember the military sending me to, after that, well, after the suicide attempt, they sent me to like a rehabilitation center for a week. And that's all well and great. It takes you out of that environment, but I really didn't get what I needed from it. And then after that, they tried sending me to, a weekly therapist. But to be honest with you, I don't think she could have cared less about what was going on with me. It was a terrible experience. And so I eventually went to trial. And the unfortunate thing is, I did everything they asked of me to do. I stood on the stand, everything. And a couple weeks after the fact, and during this time too, after the trial, they let me separate from the military with an honorable discharge. And right after that, my victim's advocate called me, and she said, I want you to sit down. And she said, and I could just hear the tears in her eyes. She was such a wonderful, wonderful person. And she said, no charges were brought against him. And that broke me. In that moment, it said to me that my reality doesn't matter. The things that happen to me don't matter. I don't matter. And that narrative I carried with me for the next 15, 20 years. And it would just be like this perpetual cycle after that, where I'd figure out how to cope for a while and things would be going well, and then something triggering would happen and I'd spiral. And then it was just, I mean, it was like a 3 to 5 year cycle, and it just repeated itself over and over again. I'd lose jobs. I was a mess. And somehow during that time, I managed to land like the best husband in the world, because if I'm telling you, if I'd married anybody else, they would have they would have run for the hills for sure. They would not have stuck by me, but he did. And we eventually had a son. And about a year into his, well, would say his first birthday, he at that point I'd started really spiraling again. Like, I was dealing with undiagnosed postpartum depression on top of everything else. I would come home from work, and for like the first hour or so that I was home, I would just be catatonic. Like, I couldn't even talk to him. Like, I was just, I was becoming a shell again. And had my son not been born, I can tell you 100% I would not be here, because I had access to lethal means in our house that for sure would have ended things. But he was enough for me to stay. And so I lost my job. I decided, you know what? I'm already at rock bottom. We've been doing this over and over again for how many years now? Because at this point, we're about 15 years in. And I thought, you know what? Come hell or high water, I'm going to figure out how I don't just want to cope. I don't just want to like figure out how I can mask everything. I want to heal. And so I took the opportunity. I started being a stay-at-home mother then. And a year later after that, my daughter came along. So or well, 2 years later, but I mean, and I took that opportunity, and when I tell you, I dug into the research. I was researching everything I could on mental health, on the brain, on the role of nutrition, what are unconventional treatments. I mean, just anything and everything I can get my hands on. And the things that worked for me, I implemented. And the things that didn't, I didn't toss them out. I kept them just in case that's something that could help somebody else. And then I started thinking, okay, so if I'm gaining all this knowledge and I'm experimenting on myself basically, and I'm learning all these useful things that can help other people, I need to get some sort of certification, because I've got to figure out a way to help other people with this. Because my biggest thing is I don't want anybody else to suffer as long as I did. And so if
Mhm.
I can do that, then that's what I'm going to do. And so, and also before that, I would say, yeah, it was when my husband and I were engaged. I started taking, it was like an online course with a church it was all about purpose, about finding your purpose. Because my thing was, like, I couldn't wrap my head around why this whole thing had happened to me. And so I did this, and it's the craziest experience ever, because when I got to the end, when I tell you, I have never had a vision in my life. It's the only time it has ever happened to me ever. And I got smacked with this vision so hard. It was almost like it was real, like it was a tangible thing, like I could touch and feel. And it was just, this vision was me standing on a stage, sharing my testimony. And I was like really buff in this vision, which I'm not there yet, but hey. But it was mind blowing. And then I got that same vision every day for like 12 days after that. And so, and of course, I'm like trying to like dismiss it. I'm like, I don't want to stand on stages and talk to people. Like, that sounds terrifying. But since then, that was the one thing I did over the last 5 years too, is push myself farther into that. And now I'm on a college speaking tour. So, that's all working out too. But yeah, so I pretty much have just learned how to take all the things that I've learned and apply them to other people and help them get to where they want to be. And some of the unconventional things that I found that, or I shouldn't say unconventional, but the most unlikely utilized, if you will, things that I came across that made the biggest impact for me. Number one was my faith. And I had strayed because I wanted to, because I was, like I said, I was not happy. And so I tried to reconnect with God, and I did. And I started reading my Bible every single day and making time to pray and all of these things. That was huge for me. For other people, it could be getting a mentor that has done what they want to do and finding somebody to connect with that can help them, which is what I tried to be for a lot of people. And then the second thing was nutrition. Like, I had no idea when I started this journey how much what we eat affects our brain and affects our mental health. And I remember thinking,
Mhm.
because I ended up getting trained under Dr. Georgia Ede, and she is she used to work at Harvard, and now she works at, I can't remember the name of the college, but it's a all girls college. But she pretty much started nutritional psychiatry. And I remember talking to her at the beginning of our course planning. Was I said, I don't, how does this really work? Because how is what I eat going to affect my trauma? Like, I feel like that could have no impact. And she said, that's where you're
Mhm.
wrong. She said, what you eat directly affects your brain, how it's wired, all of these things. And no, it's not going to change your trauma, but it can help you change how you see your trauma, how you view it, how you experience it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And it ended up being the most amazing thing I have ever done. It's been incredible. And I started implementing, like, for me, keto is like the best thing that I have ever done for my mental health. But that's not going to be true for everybody. And so typically, like, if I have a client, we start talking, or start with just eliminating like the processed stuff. Get rid of that stuff. Get rid of the sugar. Start there. And that honestly is like one of the biggest things that can improve your mental health right there, is just by getting rid of that stuff. Because the thing people always forget, it's like they treat the brain like it's separate from the rest of the body, and it's not. It's all connected.
Mhm.
And so if you eat better for your brain, you're going to eat better for your body. It's all works together, and then every other aspect of your life improves. And so that was a big thing. And then the third thing was community, and finding
Mhm.
people that will support you in your journey, and people that will lift you up, people that will encourage you, people that will push you along if you need a little pushing, but in a loving way. And finding those people to connect with. I mean, because one of the things I would always tell my husband, because it always seemed like my bad days, it was always at nighttime when I was trying to sleep, because my brain would just never shut off. And I would always say, I feel so alone. Like, I just feel so alone. Like, there's no one else out there that understands what I'm going through. And that's not true. There's thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people who understood exactly what I was going through. I didn't have them yet. And so that has been crucial. Just when you feel supported or you have somebody on your side, it's amazing the impact that it can have on your mental health. So those were like my 3 pillars. But there's just so much out there that you can do to get to where you want to be. And it's been a crazy journey, but it's been so, so, so rewarding. And I'm now to the point where I'm kind of grateful for everything that I went through, because now I get to use all that and help other people. I think I heard somebody say, and I can't remember who it was. They said, your trauma doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And if that's not the truest
Mhm.
thing, because it's not meant for me, it's meant for me in the sense that I can use it, but it's excuse me, it's meant to help the other people out there who have gone through something similarly, who are stuck like I was. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to give that away.
I love how you spoke about nutrition and how that correlates with trauma and how sometimes we don't even think about it. And when you mentioned, removing of our processed foods, that's a huge step. And I was thinking about how that is so simple in its
Mhm,
thinking process, but yet oftentimes there's such resistance to doing that because it's like, but fresh foods cost so much more money. I don't have this much
mhm,
time. I work, or unfortunately, with our economy, some people are working two jobs. I have children. What are some suggestions for situations like that? Because we know that
mhm,
nutrition is so important. It's vital. We are what we eat. And um, when we have this limited time, what do you think, or limited
mhm.
resources, what would be some suggestions that you would
Well,
have?
the first thing I would start doing is say, what is it costing you not to eat healthy? What are you
Right.
sacrificing? And then ask yourselves, is it really worth it to not eat the way I'm not, that I'm supposed to eat? And a lot of times the answer is no. So then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, what can I give up right now to start in the right direction? Whether it's a Netflix subscription or something, your gym membership you're not even really using right now, or things like that, where you can create a little bit of extra funds to start implementing a healthier lifestyle. And you don't have to do it all at one time. That's a misconception. Everybody thinks it's got to be all or nothing. And that's why so many diets fail, is because you just throw out all the excess crappy food and you buy all this health food. And then, like, a week or two into it, you're like, you don't have to start there. You do not. I always ask people, do you want results that are fast, or do you want results that are going to last? And if you want results that are going to last, don't do it that way. So start small. Start with your drinks. If you're drinking pop and everything else, start there. Start drinking more water. And just start with one. Like, I got a friend that drinks like 3 Cokes a day. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm working on her. And I'm like, just get rid of one. Just get rid of one. Just start there. Just get rid of one and replace it with the water. And that way too, you don't have, I mean, have you ever quit caffeine in your life?
I've never had a problem with caffeine, but I've definitely had to quit
Oh my
other
gosh. Okay,
vices.
so I'll just tell you a quick story. I gave up caffeine last year for New Year's, going into 2024. And I love coffee. Love it. If a doctor ever says to me, you can keep living, but you have to give up coffee, I'm gonna say, man, I've had a great life because I love
Mm.
coffee. And so, but I was,
Let me
yeah.
tacos.
But I was like, I wanted to see if it, like, helped me sleep better, if it, like, my energy levels maintain instead of spiking, all these things. And again, it was kind of an experiment. So I switched from regular coffee to decaf. And when I tell you I thought I was going to die for three
Mm.
days, oh my gosh, it was awful, awful. Like, we don't like to think of caffeine as a drug, but it is. And the withdrawal was
Mhm.
terrible. So I don't recommend that, just saying. But hey, I've been a year and I don't know how long now. So, I mean, I have no regrets, but I'm just saying, start small. Just start small, just inching back. But then start with one meal at a time, whether that's breakfast or whatever. And that, just start implementing the healthy stuff next week or the next couple weeks. Then you start implementing a healthier lunch. A couple weeks after that, then you start
Mhm.
implementing a healthier dinner. And then that also gives your body time to adjust, because your body can't adjust. That's what I usually tell people too, is like with keto, like, it's hard. And the keto flu is real. Let me tell you, it is a real thing. And
Mm.
now some people like that. They'd rather just get the pain and then just be over it in 3 days and be able to keep going. But a lot of people kind of just want to ease into it. So we just don't cut the carbs like that. We ease back into it. We start with the healthier foods, just get the healthy foods in there. Then we can start dialing it back. But yeah, it's my recommendation is always to start small. Start with the little things you can do now that aren't going to make a huge difference right off the bat, but they will over time.
Mm.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for that. You mentioned pain bringing
Mhm,
you to purpose. And when you were sharing your story about sexual assault being in the military, I myself was
mm,
sexually assaulted in the military as well. And I speak about that in some of my episodes. And our responses are very different. And I like that. And I want to kind of shine light to that. So for me, before my sexual assault, I was on stage, I was a performer, I loved being
mhm,
seen. And then my experience, what happened to me, I was in the military. It happened on base. They brought me back to my ship in my command, and I was half
oh,
clothed. I had blood coming from my face, and they sat me in front of the MA shack in front of everyone to just walk past me. And from that point, that desire to be visible, I no longer wanted to be
mhm.
visible anymore. So it really stopped me from pursuing my dreams. What you spoke of was something different, right? You didn't have this desire. It was
No.
nothing that you wanted. And unfortunately, because what you experienced, that pain created
Mhm.
your purpose. Can we kind of discuss what that purpose, what purpose did you discover from this
Well, the
experience?
biggest thing is, we always hear people say, your pain becomes your purpose. But it's true. It's not a cliche thing. It is absolutely true. People always want to find out what their purpose is, and they make it feel like it has to be this big grandiose thing. It doesn't always have to be that. For like, okay, for example, my mother-in-law, she lost a child. She had twins. One of the children passed away. They were premature. And she found purpose in talking to other people who have experienced a loss of a child. And that gave her meaning and purpose in her life. And so it doesn't always necessarily have to be standing on a stage or being a coach or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be starting a support group. It could be a lot of things. But for me, just I think that experience that I had when I was searching for my experience or for my purpose, um, that was a big thing. Like it would constantly, like every time I just like try to dismiss it, it would pop its head up again. And it's almost like a calling that it's not going to stop until you start. And so and for a lot of people, it's what it is, you're just afraid of it. And the best thing you can do is just try it. Just try it. Just try stepping into it. Try it and just see what happens. Because the first time I ever shared my testimony publicly was on a podcast with a couple of my friends. And I was terrified. I mean, terrified. And wasn't one of their most popular episodes or anything like that, but there was one person that heard that podcast that had just been sexually assaulted 3 weeks before, who reached
Mhm.
out to my buddy and said, "That was for me. You have no idea how bad I needed to hear that." And that made a connection with somebody, and that was the thing that solidified in my brain, "Okay, I need to do this. I need to do this." And then I ended up coaching somebody for free because I was trying to get experience. And I just had lunch with her the other day, and she said, "Working with you, like, changed my life." And it's that
Mm.
validation, like, people will validate you when you step into that and affirm that you're supposed to be doing that. And that's definitely how it's been for me, and it's been for a lot of people I know who have done the similar things. Because 'cause I'm in a speaker bureau, and a lot of people have said the exact same thing. And it's like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it other than it's like you kind of always know what it is, but you don't really know how to just step forward. And so, like I said, for me, I mean, I was 12 years ago and I just started public speaking like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. So, it'll take you a while to get there, but that's okay. But anybody can do it. Anybody can figure out, like, if you can look at your purpose or your biggest trauma in your life and really look at it and say, how could I use this for service of other people? And you can figure out how to do that. Boom, there you go. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
I agree.
I
I
mean,
agree.
people think that happiness is this thing you create in yourself, but that's not really true. You don't realize how much fulfillment and happiness that you get from helping other people. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a medicine for sure. It is a medicine.
Absolutely. I agree. A map to hope. Let's talk about that. This is your
Mhm.
organization that actually it's a
Mhm.
business, right? It's not an organization, it's your
Yeah.
business. So, what type of services do you offer at A Map to Hope? And what is the philosophy with A
So
Map to
for
Hope?
me, it's all about helping people create their own roadmap of where they are now to where they want to be, and creating mile markers, if you will, along the way, and say this is where we learn a new skill and this is where we learn to implement it, and once we do that, then we move on to the next thing. And what I offer is one-on-one coaching, but I'm getting ready. I'm very excited. Nobody's heard this yet, to start group coaching, because one-on-one coaching can be very expensive. But because we're pouring our heart into it, and we're making a commitment to somebody, and we're using a lot of our time and resources for that one person. But I really want to reach more people and help more people. And I feel like group coaching is something that can do that, because I can talk to more people at one time. The cost goes down dramatically. And then you're also creating the community, which is, one of my pillars inside of that. So, and you're helping people find their other people that get them, that understand it. And so I'm getting ready to start that. And I'm going to start that. I mean, I'm planning on doing it year round. So like in 12 weeks at a time. That's the, the commitment. But that, and then I also, like I said, I do public speaking too. So like if you go to my website and you scroll to coaching, you can click on my link and it will take you to like a Calendly schedule, and you can just click on it and make an appointment, because the first consult or like a consultation is always free. It should always be free, because how are you going to know if you vibe with somebody, or if they, you know,
I
don't ever charge for a
agree.
consultation. Just remember that. So, but I do free consultations with people to see if this was definitely something that they would be interested in and that they would commit to, and that they can afford it, all the stuff. So, but that's something practical that I offer. I do love it. But then, like I said, we're going to get more practical and we're going to start group coaching. I'm hoping to get that started by May 1st. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy right now, and I'm very blessed and fulfilled and all the things. And then also I do something I have started doing is posting YouTube videos. Like I just posted one the other day about what not to say to someone who may be suicidal. Things like that, and offering practical tips
Mm.
for people, especially, and how I want to do it. I want to do it exactly like I do with my coaching. It's like we're starting here, and then we're going to transition to where we want to go, and each video is going to take us a little closer to where people want to be. So lots of things.
Because you mentioned something, and I think we weren't really clear on that, and I
Mhm.
want to go back to it because you A Map to Hope in the type of transformational coaching that you really focus on in the mental health side is more geared to the suicidal admiration and also those who are, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, loved ones, family members of those who do have. So, can we talk about that a little bit more? Because I
Absolutely.
do love that component of a map to help. And I don't think we dived deep enough for me. I
Right.
think we need to go more
And
into it.
so what I would tell somebody, if somebody reaches out to me and says, "Hey, my daughter's suicidal," or what, whatever it may be, the first thing I always say is you need to get help first. Like one of my criteria with one-on-one coaching is you have to have a therapist, because the difference between therapy and coaching is therapy helps you tackle your roots, if you will. They help you tackle the things that are keeping you where you are, the things that are holding you back, the trauma, all the stuff. Because some people don't even realize where their thought patterns and things like that and their negative thoughts and all that stuff come from. It comes from your past. And so people will try to
Mhm.
move forward, but they're tethered. They're still tethered to all these things in their past. So I feel like it's very, very crucial for people to have a therapist so then I can help them move forward as they're tackling their past. So because if not, you're just going to keep getting stuck. And so that's very, very important. But I always tell people who reach out to me and say, so and so is suicidal. Okay, if they're suicidal, the first thing they need is to stay safe. That's key number one. But if we
Mhm.
can get them to where they are safe, they're stable, all of that, then I would love to come in there. And then we start with, okay, this is where we are now. What would it look like? What do you think your life would look like if you didn't have to keep dealing with all this? If you could address all these negative thoughts, if we could address your self-worth, if we can address all the things that you feel are holding you back, what would your life look like? And that gives us kind of a rough view of where they would like to be. And then we say, okay, we break it back down into steps. And we say, okay, what's step number one to get us a little bit closer? What's the first thing we need to do? Well, I usually I'll start at a purpose, helping them find a purpose. And then I call their compass. I mean, it's perfect representation. So it's a thing that keeps us going. Because if you can find a purpose, then you can find a reason to keep going. And so I start there, but then we start with what I call our first aid kit. Who's our care team? Who's our medical professionals if we need psychiatric medication? Not everybody does, but some people do. Who's our therapist? Who's our support team? Like is it our family? Is it our friends? Is it somebody that we met through a support group? Something like that. Who are those people? And we need to identify them. And then those people become our first aid kit. They're the people that give us our mental
Mhm.
bandages, if you will. And so then we move from there. And what's after that? Well, we have to have faith that things can get better. And that is our lantern. It's the thing that gives us the light in the dark, because a lot of people are starting in darkness. And it's not so much, it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious faith. You just have to believe that things can get better. Because if you don't believe that things
Right.
can get better, then you can't have hope. And if you don't have hope, that's when things go from suicidal ideations to suicidal actions. And so that's got to be a factor. And then the other thing is that's where we kind of, once we get kind of those things in place and we've found a few baby steps that we could start taking, then we start talking about our fuel, which is our food. And like I said before, we
Mhm.
take little baby steps. And so that's kind of the journey. It's at first it's little tiny little steps. And then from there, then we could start maybe taking a little bit of bigger steps. So I never want to make it overwhelming for anyone. I always want to meet people where they are and then just figure out, okay, well, how can we inch a little bit closer to what we think, or where we think we want to be, I should say. So, but yeah, so I never want to work with anybody who is in danger of actually committing suicide. That is for professionals. That is where they are crucial. So I always tell people that is like, if you think they're going to hurt themselves, then you get them help immediately. It's not a negotiation. Your job is to keep them
Mhm.
safe. So, but once we get to that point, once we're stable, then yeah, then we can start getting you where you want to be.
Mm. Thank you so much for really spending the time with everyone here at Rich with Experiences. Our experiences really create our way of thinking, our belief patterns, how we perceive the world. And as a trauma informed coach, I often speak about how our lived experiences is our
Mhm.
foundation. It's especially from our past. And as adults, we are often responding from situations that we experience from the ages of 0 to 6.
Mhm.
So I love how you highlighted that that is where we really have to do the
Mhm.
core work in order to really process so we can be present and have the life that we envision for ourselves in our
Right.
current day. So how can people work with you? Can we tell them the website? How can we find you on
Yeah.
social media? How can maybe wants to book you as you are a speaker? Let us know.
Absolutely. So you can go to it's just seriously a map to hope.com. That's simple. If you go to map2hope.com, all my information is on there. And then, like I said, there's a way to schedule a free consultation. I'm also going to put like my group coaching information on there too. So stay tuned for that. As far as getting booked for speaking events, you can just email me at a map2hope@gmail.com. And then I'm also very active on TikTok, and it's just a map to hope. See what I'm saying? Facebook, same thing. It's if you just search for a map to hope, you'll find us. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't know how I feel about Instagram. So I put some stuff on there, but it's not where I'm is most active. I get the most interaction with people on TikTok and Facebook, but and then YouTube, same thing, Map to Hope.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So before we wrap up, if you can look at little Jen right now, what would be some words of encouragement that you would say to her?
Oh, probably don't be afraid of your flaws. Don't be afraid of
Mm,
your flaws. You are who you are for a reason. And if you have some flaws, that's okay. Learn to use them in your everyday life. Like what okay, one thing I struggle with, the one thing I have not quite conquered yet, but I'm confident that I will, is ADHD. And it's still a struggle for me. And because I went undiagnosed for well, almost all my life. I just got a diagnosis like a year and a half ago. And of course, after I have kids and everything else, and then my son got diagnosed. So um I I always just kind of just thought I wasn't good enough, or why can't I do this like everybody else can? Why are they able to do that but I can't? And it's because I didn't know anything about my little unique brain and things like that. And I would just tell my younger self, it's okay. Figure out how to make those things work for you. And once you can do
mm,
that, you're going to be unstoppable. And I encourage my kids to don't be afraid to be yourself. You are created and made beautiful just the way that you are. And I think it's a beautiful thing. We don't want a world where everybody's the same. We do not.
absolutely.
So, don't be afraid to stand in your own skin. That is probably the number one thing I would have said to
Mm,
myself when I was 6.
I love that. And I think that's great words of wisdom for all of us is really um, we are perfectly imperfectly
Mhm.
made, and to accept who we are, and we don't have to wear masks.
Exactly.
We can be ourselves. And thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open, and the work that you do as a healer to encourage that in other people. We are not going to get out of this world without having some sense of trauma
Sure.
in our lives, but it's definitely how we show up afterwards. And you have been an example of that. And thank you so much for coming on Rich with Experiences and sharing your story with us and your expertise and knowledge, which is also very valuable in itself. So thank you
Thank
so, so
you.
very
I
much.
appreciate you so much and what you're doing with your channel, and it's amazing, and you're a beautiful soul, and I'm grateful that you have created something like this. So
Rich with Experience family, I am so excited that we are together again. And as always, remember to love yourself through discovery and healing. Until next week.
bye.